And now I'd like to welcome Sharon B. for speaking.
Hi, Sharon Barker, alcoholic. Hi, Sharon. Makes me nervous. You just close the curtains. It's really, the wizard is back there, but still looking for the wizard. Thank you, Jerry, for asking me. I admire you very much, and I appreciate that you honored me with the invitation. And I want to thank all my friends in the room. I just ran into my friend Coco, and we were laughing. 20 years ago, we were doing sober dancing. It was, Jerry's laughing. He thinks I'm old. I learned, I was thinking, I have a 21-year-old, and you know, you're not any good unless you can embarrass your kid. And so we would go to these dances, and I learned the butt dance. I remember there was the butt dance, and so when my son has friends over and they're playing music, I back into his room with the butt dance. And I'm 30 years sober, and my son doesn't know what embarrassing is. Because I was a tequila drinker and a Harley rider, and thumb was out, and I was, having a great time, and he has no idea what his mother could do to embarrass him. So that's a good thing. And, I think about that time, and it was around 1984, and we were 9-10 years sober, and we were having a lot of fun, and was married, and life was good, and it was right before I got pregnant, and we were being of service in AA, and life, everything looked like the yellow brick road, and then I realized my husband was seeing other women, and dancing with other women, and the rug got pulled on my life, and somehow, someway, I stayed sober through that, because as Sophie talked about the tools, I ran into a brick wall, and I got sober August 20th in 1975, and I'm still here, and I don't know why sometimes, other than I put one foot in front of the other, and I get up in the morning, and every day I wake up, even if it's the hardest day of my sobriety, I have hope. There's something that happens to me when there's one alcoholic talking to another, when there's, I sit in a room and I hear chapter 5. It's music to me, because it's like, oh, thank God there's hope. I forget. We're alcoholics. We have short attention spans. We get out in the world. We're very sensitive, and you get pulled in 1,000 different directions. And I come sit in a meeting, and it's like, I take a deep breath. And I'm so grateful that we come and get together and meet and remember that, oh, okay, there's hope. Because my fire burns bright today because of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I work at keeping that fire going. I had a lot of promise as a young girl, and I blew right through it. Alcohol, the call of the wild was much stronger. Full moon, little fog, Friday the 13th. I feel like my fangs are growing a little bit, and I better check my arms for hair growing, and something about the nighttime. We're a little more serious at night, alcoholics. So I am sponsored, and I've always been sponsored, and I sponsor a lot of people, and I always tell them if it looks really, if it looks good at night, wait till the sun comes up on it, and then make your decision. Just a little clue about it, because it's how we are at night. It's romantic and poetic, and just let the sun come up on that idea, and then we'll think about it. But something about a curtain, a shawl, and dancing girls. I did work in the French Quarter for a while, so it's not something I aspired to be when I grew up, but I did dance for the 500 Club down on Bourbon Street, and I fell off the piano too many times, so I asked for a raise, thought I could divert them a little bit, and they fired me. because I was drunk all the time, and I blamed it on the platform shoes. I blamed it on those platform shoes that we were dancing in, and I became a bartender, and that's, I loved alcohol. I gave up my art talent for alcohol. I gave up my musical talent for alcohol. I gave up my mom and dad and my family's love for alcohol. I gave up my God for alcohol. I gave up a lot of things for alcohol. And the big book talks about king alcohol, and I built my life around alcohol so that people couldn't look at me at 11 in the morning and go, isn't it a little early? I built my life around alcohol so that I didn't have to answer to anybody about wasn't I supposed to be, somewhere at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I was in the bars. I drank with people that drank like me. And if you didn't, I didn't want to know you. And, alcohol just took over my life, and I let it because I loved it. There was something about tip of my head to tip of my toes power that I had been seeking that I found. And the spirits of alcohol filled me with that omnipotence that I was looking for. That I used to have that feeling when I used to feel my God when I was a little girl, or when Santa Claus would come, or that feeling of hope and closeness with whatever was going on. And something changed in me. And I discovered alcohol, and alcohol was the answer. And I gave up a lot of stuff for alcohol, and that was okay. It was really okay. It wasn't really a problem until, I lost my gallbladder and I had pancreatitis. That was a little bit rough at 21 years old. I did a lot of chapter 3 just because I didn't want people to get too close to me. Organic farms, hitchhiking to wherever just because, it sounded like a good idea in the middle of the night. I tried a lot of different things, and always I took me with me, and I didn't realize, and I was a truth seeker, I knew it was out there somewhere. I had to find truth. And on 16 four-way hits of Orange Sunshine, you will find a little truth along with whatever you're drinking to keep you mellowed out as truth is zipping by. And I managed to function, and I managed to make some money, and then I just kind of gave it up. I gave it about 21, I just gave it up. I just thought, I'm not even going to try anymore. I'm going to build my life how I want, where I want. And I ended up in a bar called Barney's Beanery. I had done a lot of things. I had been a lot of places. I had come to with a lot of people. And in 1975, I was on the run to Hawaii and ended up at Barney's. Never got to Hawaii, and I was toxic and bloated, and I had liver spots on my face, and I had a Panama hat and a red dashiki and a book in my backpack called Be Here Now by Baba Ram Das, and I was bloated and 170 some pounds. I was sick, but I was tough, I was belligerent, and I wanted my whatever I needed and get out of my way. And then there were times that I would have to hide in the dumpsters in the alley because they were coming. That they're there. So that I was dying of alcoholism was the truth. And I hadn't had a day with my parents in years. And the last time my parents saw me, I was living above a biker bar on St. Peter Street in the French Quarter. And I was living with the skunk man from the carnival I had been working with. I have a long chapter 3, and this skunk named Crank didn't like my dog, and my dog didn't like the skunk, and the skunk didn't like me, and I didn't like the guy, and the guy didn't like me, but we had 2 years together to make this work, you know? Nobody's leaving. First, you know? But we had done some jail time in Bogalusa, Louisiana for sales and possession, and we had yeah, it was a lot of fun. So my mom and dad knock at the door one morning, and I still had my platinum blonde wig on from the night before, and my little zippered outfit with my fishnet stockings and those platforms, and a new black eye. I had a new black eye I'd been covering up with some glitter, and so the drag queens taught me that little trick. And there's Margin Frank standing at the door, and you know, there's the skunk man with the snake wrapped around his hand greeting my father, and I'm from Iowa. I mean, I had left Iowa a long time ago, but my parents were still very Iowa, and they quite hadn't seen anything like this. And of course, my father didn't come in, and my mother had tears in her eyes. And you know, they went back that day. They were in Texas. They thought they'd come over and find me to see if I was okay, because they hadn't heard from me in quite a few months, maybe a year, since my father had tried to bail me out of that jail. And I just wanted to crawl in the back of their car, their station wagon, and go back to Iowa with them and start over, and I was tired. I was so tired. And I sat in the Mousetrap bar, and I ordered my rock glass full of Jose Cuervo Gold, because I drank gold to the top of the rock glass, no salt, you know, neat, no lime, just pour the gold. And it didn't work for me. It didn't put out the fire, it didn't make me not care what I saw, it didn't make me not feel some shame, it didn't make me not, you know, have some feelings of sadness. I was like, come on, I don't know how many I knocked back, and it wouldn't turn off the head. And, you know, I'm a blackout drinker. I mean, let's just go into a blackout, and I'll come to somewhere else. I don't really care if it's Florida or somewhere, as, you know, it's a new start, a new life, good. I was very, very much a reckless human being, and that was fine. I had given up a lot of my soul. There was just really an ember when I came to you left. And, you know, you helped me fan that ember. I didn't even know I wanted to live when I came here. I didn't really care anymore. But, you know, eventually that relationship ended because he left. And I went and found him because the parole board found him from St. Louis. That's what happened. Missouri found him. And I went to St. Louis and found him to discuss the leaving. And he got off his Harley, and he took off his helmet, and he broke the window by me as a police car pulled up. And he pulled me, you know, pulled my hair, what he could get, his hands on through the broken window, and he spit at me and said, if I ever see you again, I will kill you. And so that's how I let go. I mean, that's how I let go. If that explains a little bit of my insane personality, there you go. I used to just say, I'm a loyal Leo. I can't help it, you know. I'm still a loyal person, but not to that extreme anymore. So that day that alcohol didn't work for me, something shifted inside of me. Alcohol, I couldn't count on it anymore. And I took a lot of other things with my alcohol. I liked to be up and moving. I didn't like to be face down going, let's party. I liked to keep going. When I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I found out why the grass was greener. A speaker named Norm Alpe said it's because the other guy took care of his lawn. Okay. And he said, and if you're new, because I think there were like 18 newcomers tonight, we know what you're made of, because when we came here, we were made of it too. Full-on fertilizer, you know? And that makes the best lawn. You got to till it, you got to do the right stuff to it, but it makes great dirt and great lawn. So stick with us, and we're going to turn that into something, because they did with me. I had nothing. I brought my bag of junk to you, my bag of crap, my Be Here Now book, my my bloody jeans and my broken face. I had been thrown out of a car. My jaw was broken in 3 places. I had nothing left, and I was sitting above a liquor store on Overland and Palms. It was the Duck Pond. And I called my mother because the guy that I had been in the hospital for 2 weeks. I was a victim of violent crime. This thing was going to go to court. I was tired. And I hope that of the 18 new people that stood up tonight, I hope you're tired. I hope you're tired. It's a great place to start. It just kind of stops the fight for a while. And something can kind of sink in, maybe. And it was August 20th, 1975, and I called my mom, who didn't sleep well at night, knowing that out of the 4 children that this daughter she was going to bury, she knew that the call would come sometime. And I called her that morning and asked for some help. And she said, Sharon, I can't help you anymore. Go to the Salvation Army. And my mom said no. And there was a phone number there of a girl I had met at Barney's. Her name was Chris. And she was always nice to me and bought me drinks and gave me money and let me sleep on her floor and gave me clothes and just was just a lot of fun. She was a drunk like me. She had been to AA. I didn't relate that morning any of this other than her number was looking at me and I called it because I had no friendly direction to turn. And I called her and she said that she couldn't help me, but Suzanne could, and Chris wasn't sober that day and Chris recognized alcoholism. I am the only alcoholic in my family. Nobody knew alcoholism. Nobody recognized anything. They just didn't know. They just knew that they were going to bury me someday. And I called Suzanne. I don't call strangers. I called this stranger, and she said, okay. Out of my broken jaw, she got Duck Pond out of my broken, I couldn't talk really. For the first 3 months in AA, I was wired shut. It was a great place to start. Just kind of sneered at everybody. And she came and sent these people, and there I was sitting in this meeting. I didn't know where I was. It was a church, and it was August, and I was hot, and I was detoxing, and I don't know where I am, and what is this? This person's asking, for new people, and I didn't know what that was. Somebody raised my hand. I didn't know how they knew it was my first time here, and you could, in a meeting like this, you could smell me because I was detoxing. And I don't get that smell enough anymore. I love that fresh alcohol smell of the newcomer. There's 18 of you. Let's come up tonight, just make my night. And but that was me. I mean, how did you know I was new? I couldn't figure it out. I mean, you could smell me, you could see it. I was looking at my shoes. I had this wired up face. I was pretty sad. I couldn't touch my cheekbones for 6 months. I had been so badly thrown around. And you saw me, inside of me, somebody worth saving. And I couldn't understand why you were nice to me. I didn't know in this book and payment terms, and gave a quarter of this guy for my book. A man named Maurice Zolotow. He used to go to the old Rodeo meeting, and he was happy that I had, given him a quarter for this book. And Maurice wrote my name in the book and in pencil my sobriety date. I still have it written in pencil because it's just about today. It's really just about now. And I stayed, and they said, don't drink, and we'll take you to a meeting tomorrow. Don't use in between today and tomorrow. We'll pick you up. And they moved me eventually out of that liquor store after a couple of days. I didn't know they were even taking care of me. I just thought they just moved me. They just moved me here, and they moved me somewhere else, and I'd sleep on people's floors. I didn't even realize until I was 31 days sober, and I went to raise my hand because it was proper. And I thought, I'm 31. I don't stay 31 days sober. I beat my fist on the bar. I'm at, the officers club down in Fort Walton Beach, and I've got 14 shots of tequila lined up, and I've got to go in the bathroom and lock the stall and hit on the quart that's in my bag because I can't get enough alcohol. I don't stay sober 31 days. And I hadn't even craved it. And For a minute, I felt God's grace. For just a second, I felt God's grace. I didn't know what that was, but it was bigger than me. It was a little bit, took my breath away for a second, because I realized there was something going on here other than me. And the best gift that I've been given in Alcoholics Anonymous is that that my sobriety is not about me, that God interrupted my dying to make my life touch other lives somehow, some way. Strangers, friends, family, doesn't matter. The human side of us, the humanness in us is what I crave. I crave that. I love to see it in people when we become human and not, there's a feeling of God. There's a feeling of that one alcoholic talking to another that I can't buy that feeling. I get it here. It started slow for me, but I've always had a sponsor louder than my head. I've had somebody that's been there walking me through the steps. That first sponsor was loud and obnoxious and wore bright clothes and quacked like a duck, and when she laughed, and she was a little insane, but I didn't know that. She just worked really hard at her program so she could stay in the world and live in a world she didn't understand, and she taught me that. And the first time I remember, she wasn't at the meeting. I thought, okay, well, I didn't want to come tonight either. There was something like the Country Western Music Awards, which I didn't care about, but I remember I called her and asked her if I could stay home to watch them. I could care, but I just wanted to see if I could get a night off, and she said, no, you go. And so I'm in the front row and my arms are folded and I'm pissed off. I think she's home with him watching the Country Western. I could care. I didn't even know a country singer. I just wanted to stay home and watch something on TV, I'm like so into that she's like home with him, and all of a sudden, like halfway through the second half of the meeting, I hear this quack, 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 quack laugh in the back of the room, and she had come to the meeting, and there was a feeling of safety that I hadn't had before. I felt safe. I hadn't felt safe in a long time, and I didn't even realize it had been years since I had felt safe. And she had me go home after my year of sobriety and start making amends to my family right away. It's like, I hardly called home. I mean, they knew I was sober. They were glad. They knew I had a place that I was coming. They didn't quite understand. Hey, hey. They whispered it. Hey, Sharon said, hey, hey. Watch out for that hey stuff. And but I came home and they didn't know what to expect, and I brought we weren't engaged yet, but my husband to be home, and they were happy I had no black eyes and that he was nice to me, and we went to meetings when we were home, and my dad and I would kind of scurry by each other because we still couldn't. I'm the little girl in Iowa that played the accordion so that I could catch my father's eye. I've got a sister who wanted to be a nurse and live in Alaska when she was 4, and that's what she did. I have an older sister who saved our lives from a fire when we were little and got an award from the president. And she's a Mensa, work with that. And I have a brother who's terrific, he's getting a doctorate. And then there's me, the alcoholic, and so they weren't quite sure what to expect, but when I came home, they were happy I was okay, and my dad and I hadn't sat down and had a conversation or looked eyeball to eyeball in, 5, 6 years, a long time. We had huge fights and emotional fights and screaming and yelling and doors slamming, and I would come home and steal cars and just drive away with them and never bring them back, and, take checks and charge things up at the store where you'd have credit, and then I would go sell it. And I wasn't honest. I was somebody that walked into their life and took from them. I was a taker. And so my sponsor said, you got to start with your family. And my mom and I, it went well, and my dad and I hadn't done it. I was afraid. But I was more afraid of that sponsor. I didn't want to get off that plane and have her yell at me or something. I don't know. Just make me sit in the front forever or something. And so I thought, okay, we're putting the bags in the car. We're getting to the airport. I'm going to come back to LA, and I haven't done this. And here's my dad and me alone together. I better say something. And I blurted it out, and he said, okay. I had to talk to him, and he said, okay. And I told him, it was a very scripted kind of thing, and we stood by the car, and nobody looked at the eyes. Nobody hugged. Nobody had a cathartic, big old crying jag. I said what I said, and my dad said, I just always wanted you to be happy. And I got in the car and came back, and my sponsor said, did you do it? And I told her, and she said, good, it's a start. So I kept the relationship going with my family. At 2.5 years of sobriety, my dad and my mom and my sisters came out to LA, and my dad walked me down the aisle. Never done that before because it was forever, eternity. We had a day at a time put in the vows so that we were sure, day at a time. And it was two ex-Catholics being married by a Baptist minister, and we had a great time, and we had, we sobered up. I remember the Kimballs played at my wedding. I remember they had just gotten sober, and, Matt wasn't yet. And Phoebe, we had Phoebe come and sing, and we had a lot of fun. And at the end of the wedding, my dad and I, somebody snapped a picture, and we're talking eye to eye. And that hadn't happened in years. And I set about having commitments in Alcoholics Anonymous from the very beginning. I was either cookie girl, or I was, cup washer. I was general service, secretary of the meeting. Whatever needed to be done, I had a commitment at my meetings. And that has kept me coming back. The nights that I don't want to show up, and I'll call my sponsor, and I'll say, I think I have a temperature, and she'll say, well, go get a thermometer, and if you don't show up. It's like when I was at my first job, and I had a brain tumor. I was sure I had this. I was very, very sick with a migraine headache, and she said, you show up at work, and if you die at work, we'll give you a great funeral, but if you die at home in bed, there's no funeral. And she hung the phone up on me, and I went out in the world, and I was Miss AA that day, and just so that I could die at work and she'd feel bad, I didn't have great motives for a long time. And it just kind of built for me in Alcoholics Anonymous. And each year that I look back on my life, a day at a time, I have grown. I have walked the path. Sometimes it's been a tiny little baby step, but it's always been in the right direction. My feet are pointed in the right direction with you, or walking the right way. And I've always been sponsored. And the blessing in that is that there's the times when my head gets to me, I can call my sponsor, because my sponsor is louder than my head. Between me and my sponsor is air. Between me and all those people on the bus. They're all there still. They're alcoholism. My mind is, it centers in your mind. My mind is sometimes not very quiet, but my actions, my feet are pointed in the right direction. And my mind does get quiet when I sit with you in a meeting. And at 5, 6, 7 years of sobriety, I started making financial amends. So I got a better job, and things were really looking good. And I gave my dad, I called him and, gave him the old pitch about, well, here I am at this point in my sobriety, and if, can you please come up with a figure so I can pay you back the money I owe you, and can we come up with a payment plan? And he said, yeah, it's this much, and he had already run the calculator tape. He had already figured it out. He had been to a meeting when he came to my wedding, and he had read the big book. And he knew that at some point this was going to happen if I stayed sober. So he's a Capricorn, and he was very prepared. And so I was a little resentful, but I called my sponsor, and we laughed about it. And so in 2 days, I called him back, and he didn't amend it. I thought he'd amend it, think about it a little bit, amend it. He didn't amend it. And so he accepted my terms, and my sponsor said, without fail, you are on time with that check, because you may be the only example that your dad ever sees of AA, that your family ever knows of. Be a good example of Alcoholics Anonymous. And when anybody says that to me, it's just like the ghost of Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob are like here, watching me to make sure I'm a good example. But there's something about that, because I respect so much what we have here. I mean, Matt Talbot was a guy that they're trying to canonize him now, but he was an alcoholic way back in the old days, and he used to get chained to a tree so he could stay sober, because there was no Alcoholics Anonymous for him to walk down the street to and complain about the coffee or the speaker, you know? He was chained to a tree so that he wouldn't drink, because he had the craving. He was demons and alcoholism. And we live in a day and age where I respect so much what we've been given. Because we are dead people. We are dead people, dead or dying. And Alcoholics Anonymous interrupts your dying, and you get a chance, as somebody said in their birthdays, to have a whole nother life again. I look back on that dead, dying woman that walked into Alcoholics Anonymous, and I think, wow, just in the nick of time, by seconds and inches I got here, by the hair on my chinny chin, chin, chin. I don't know if I'd have another day where I go, I'm tired. I think I'll call somebody I don't know for some help. Don't do that. I don't do that. I had my day, and I respect that day very much, and I get to see it relived when I see the newcomers come in the door, because the lights are off. The lights are off for me. I have a picture of me 3 months sober, the lights are still off, and I like to watch the lights go on. It's an inside switch, you know, but it happens, and I get to sit around the miracle of it. It's an amazing thing. I never, ever get tired of watching the light go on. Someone doing a fifth step. Oh, yeah, they look different. They look a little lighter. Is it because they shaved their mustache? Or, no, they did a fifth step. Oh, that's it, you know? I love it. I love what happens to us around here, and it renews my spirit, and we become givers. We become givers in the world, not just givers in Alcoholics Anonymous, but as it talks about in our book, we take this into our community. We take this into our home. We take this out into the world. And you can walk a free human being. I can walk a free human being today. I don't have to look over my shoulder. I don't have to hide behind garbage cans because they're coming. I don't have to do that anymore. I wake up every morning with hope. I must say, making the amends to people in New Orleans was so powerful. I sponsor one of the girls that I drank and died with. She's 22 years sober today. Another one that I sponsor, there were 3 of us, and we're the lucky ones. We got together in Oklahoma many years ago and sat around and talked about our gods. And the last time we were all together, they were looking at me like, because my alcoholism was a little further ahead than theirs. They were looking at me like, we don't want to even party with you anymore because you were depressing. And she went back to law school and sent me my pardon for fun and for free in the mail from the state of Louisiana. There's just been amazing healings and circles closing, and the thing with my dad, and he got that check every month on time, and my sponsor said send a note with it. Do not send the cash in an envelope alone. Just send a note about your life with that and be on time. Every month, send that payment every month on time. And my dad got a note and a check for, I don't know, going on 5 years, a long time. I kept thinking, when are we going to end this already, you know? And then my sponsor said, I mentioned that to her, and she said, oh, he's putting it into a trust fund for you, so you'll get it all back when it's over. And I'm thinking, okay, interest, this is good, you know? So I'd send it early for a little while. I mean, she was smarter than me, faster than me. Had those great stories, you know, so. And my dad just got that check and that note. He didn't know what went behind it every month. Am I going to have the money this month? You know, he just got the check and the note. And it seemed like our conversations got easier. It seemed like when I would go home, things would get better. And my dad called me between the Christmas and New Year's time, and he said, Merry Christmas, I don't want your money anymore. You're done. You know, you have to send me the last 2 years or whatever it was. He said, but don't stop sending me your notes. And my dad and I went into a guilt-free relationship, and I thought about, it didn't quite hit me until about 6 months ago. I was thinking somebody was going through a divorce, and their parents were helping them, and I thought, I gave my parents their daughter back. The circle closed, we were even, the score was fine. My dad got to give to me again. When I went through my divorce at 10, they drove out a car. They painted my house. They bought me a new bed. They got to go, we're coming out. Because I had a sponsor who said, send that check. And it freed them up to be able to do what their role in life was with me, which was be my parents. So if I think it's about me, it was like, when I got that was not about me at all. It wasn't even about me and Dad. It was about allowing them the freedom to be my parents again. And it's just my father, when he was killed 6 years ago. It's going on 7 years, and it was over in a second, and he walked out of my mother's life and never came back. And Alcoholics Anonymous was there when I got off the plane. They were already there. The coffee was on, the flowers were there. And really, they've never left. They've never left my mother. You've never left my mother. My friend Sybil, who's here tonight, even lived in the basement for a while when she went to, they have nice basements out there. It's not like here. They're finished. And she didn't put her in the basement, although her name is Sybil, She finished her went back to college and finished. And, when I can't be there, Sybil's there, or Joyce is there, or Kathy's there, or somebody is there for my mother when I can't be there. And that's what we do for each other. I have this great kid who's 21. I had this really nice marriage for a long time, and then it was over. And I got to tell you that, my sponsor, Coco, and I were both sponsored by Ginny, who smoked pot. And she had to give up her 21 years, and I ended up with a man named Clancy as my sponsor, because that's the group I've been in since the beginning. I didn't know any better. I didn't choose it. I didn't run away from it. It was just where I was lucky enough to find a seat in Alcoholics Anonymous. And he's been my sponsor now for 20 years. And, and he just walks like he talks, He's just got a lilt in his step and a sparkle in his eye, and he's still in love with Alcoholics Anonymous with 48 years of sobriety. And I'm 30, and I'm still in love with Alcoholics Anonymous. I want that. I want to know you can be 48 years sober still having fun with AA, because I'm a have-fun kind of gal. I'm a more kind of gal. I don't sit back on my laurels. We're always doing something, and we're having a good time doing it. I love it when we get together in a restaurant, you're not realizing you're the loudest ones in there, having the most fun until everybody starts listening to our stories, You can dress us up, but don't listen, I work on a world where there's a lot of men, and they're all very well educated, and that experience with my father allowed me to stand up from the tip of my head to the tip of my toes like a whole human being, not afraid or guilty or, where's daddy, where's not daddy. I became a full human being with that amends with my father, and I get to be a worker among workers. I can walk in a room and hold my head up and feel totally worth it. That's just one little area. I've been given so many gifts here, and I get so full of them, I have to give them away. That's the beauty of it is. I'm so blessed that I get to sponsor a lot of women in AA and be able to give this away. Sometimes sometimes I think and then this answer will come from like the shadows, something one of my sponsors said 10 years ago, or wow, who said that? It's like, it's not me, It's like my child is through me, not of me, and God is definitely through me in sponsorship. I am now very much, I look like a grown-up. I live in a home that's, looks like a grown-up's home. I have, 4 cats, a dog, a fiance, and a great kid, and I work in a law firm, and you think, okay, where's she going every night? She's working late, I'm going to sit with my people in Alcoholics Anonymous. When I came to you at my very first meeting, a man stood here and said he always waited for the spaceship to land and say, you can come home now, Bill. Oh, and I was that little girl in the Iowa nights looking for the spaceship. And I knew he knew how I felt. The identification lit me up enough. You saw somebody worth saving, and you gave me the keys to the kingdom. And I hope of the 18 people that are new tonight, I hope you're tired. Come up and let me give you a sniff. Thanks.